Hey everyone, it's September 20th, 2020. My name's Bobby Frankenberger. I'm here with the rest of the SCN crew, and today we're going to be talking about some tabletop gaming news for the week. We're going to be talking about HeroQuest, the classic adventure board game. It's coming back, or at least we think it is. New figurines of adorable power are coming for D&D, and a new tool for dungeon masters to make 3D battle maps. So let's get to it. All right, so first up, we're going to talk about UltraPRO announced a new wave of their D&D collectible figurines called Figurines of Adorable Power. The name is a play on the D&D magical item Figurines of Wondrous Power, which allows you to throw a figurine of a creature on the ground, summoning a physical version of that creature and becoming the very best like no one ever was in D&D. The UltraPRO collectibles are 3 1/4 inches tall, and definitely lived up to their name of being adorable, if I do say so myself. There's going to be 4 new figures. I'm probably going to pronounce this first one wrong, but it's a bulette, a goblin, a black dragon, and a roper, bringing the total number of figurines to 10. It's the 3rd wave of the collectibles that's being released. The first wave had an owlbear and a red dragon, and they were released back in August 2019. There's no official release date for this wave. They've stated that the pre-order sales have a deadline of October 7th, so it won't be any time before that. So make sure you get your pre-orders in now. I'm very seriously considering doing that. I think that these are very much more interesting than the Funko Pop toys we talked about last week. I'm very seriously considering getting the Flumph, which you can see at the top right of the image I've got right there. From the second wave of toys, because in my home D&D campaign we've encountered flumps, so it'd be a nice memento for that. But I don't know if anybody else is considering it. Have you guys looked at these or are considering anything, or would you consider something like that?
I haven't seen these before.
Yeah.
But I do agree with your assessment that these are way more dynamic and cool than the Funko Pops.
Yeah.
What's the yellow one that looks like a goblin?
Oh, let's see. That one is that's a goblin. You talked about the yellow and black one down at the bottom?
On the very bottom next to the black dragon? Yeah.
Yep, that is a goblin. Yeah.
That looks cool. I would get that one.
Yeah, I think
want a mimic.
A mimic. Yeah. I think they all look pretty cool, and I'm very seriously considering one.
What's a Flumph?
It's like
Is that the hippo?
No, the Flumph is the top. In that image, we'll look at it again here. In that image, the top right, it looks in game. It looks kind of like a floating potato with tentacles and eyes.
Oh,
the only
okay.
context that I really know the Flump from is from the Giant of the Playground comic series.
Yeah, they're scion, like they're telekinetic and
I can't remember ever having a D&D game where we run into Flumps.
They're friendly. They were in.
And what's with that? What's with that? Like, what is that? Like a hippopotamus ship captain or something?
I gotta say, the only one that I actually like is the Bulette.
Yeah. Well, check out all of them if you want over on UltraPRO, and yeah, get your orders in by October 7th. All right, we've all used virtual tabletops like Roll20, Tabletop Simulator, and Astral, which is a relatively new one, but there's even a newer contender on the scene, BattleMap.io. BattleMap.io is a 3D battle map for tabletop RPG game masters to use to make their games come to life with animated and interactive 3D maps created in the browser. The builder comes with landscaping tools that allow you to make elevated terrains of different kinds. You can place trees and props in the scene like walls and chairs and tables. There's cool smoke and magic and lighting effects, all in 3D. You can even place characters and NPCs in the scenes that have animations to them. It's pretty neat. It's got a Patreon that gives you access to expanded props and characters and effects, and free map packs that will be sent to you on the regular. So it's a pretty cool proof of concept, I think. I don't think that it's quite there yet. I'm gonna show you a little bit of it in a minute, but at least for me to use, I didn't check out the Patreon features, admittedly, so maybe there's a little bit more there. But the interface itself is a little bit hard to use. However, I think those are all problems with it being new and it being sort of a small developer project. And I think that those could easily get fixed with like support and more people on the team and more time to fix the user experience with feedback from people. So I think this is one that I want to keep my eye on. It might have some legs to it in the future. Cliff, you've said before that you've used 3D tabletops for RPGs, right? Like a tabletop simulator. Was it worth it? Do you think that it adds something being despite a bit wonky to use?
I think if it's intuitive and you're not using a bunch of technical features that take too long to set up and work with on the fly, in those experiences, it's worked pretty well, pretty nicely. It's something you reach for to use when you need it and forget about when you don't. But for the most part, I found that the more flashy stuff that you utilize as far as the technology in your game, the more things go wrong and bog down, and you get stuck playing the game of making the technology work instead of playing the game you're there to play.
Yeah.
So I tend to lean more towards doing theater of the mind whenever possible, because dealing with maps in an online form can be problematic, especially if you don't know where the players are going or what scenes you're doing. I love doing it in person when you can reach out and move the miniatures around, and I think Tabletop Simulator comes pretty close to that. I did find, honestly, the interface for this was actually pretty intuitive. I could figure out how to do most things with it without having to reach for a manual or a README or something.
It's definitely a really strong start, and it's not unintuitive. There's just some wonkiness to it, like deleting and doing repeated things of the same type can be funky. And
that was definitely something I would say that I would like better, is to not have to reselect a tool every time you're going to place something or draw another wall. But that's all growing pain stuff. I think the actual potential for this really overcomes any misgivings I have about its current form clunkiness, because it is in a declared beta form.
Yes, that's definitely true.
It's not like it's saying this is done yet. I really don't like the feature where when you drop something in, it gives it a name and a nickname. Like, it might kind of be okay for some of the NPCs to get a random name generated, but like when you're dropping down your triangles and squares or goblins, or, I had a bear who had a nickname of Snoopy just randomly. That was kind of funny, but not something I want to plop down when I'm going to scare my players with something that's going to eat their characters.
Yeah. I think that's probably true, but I think that's a good assessment. I think it's that's basically the way I feel about it. I think it's going places, and I want to keep an eye on it because it could be pretty cool. I especially like that it's in browser. That just makes it more accessible.
Does it have the potential to do things like Tabletop Simulator does, or is it basically a role-playing game aid?
That's a good question. You mean like could you expand?
Could you play could you play Warhammer on it, or
I think you probably could. There's measurement tools in there, like to measure distances.
Okay, that's essentially what I was asking. If that's the case, I wonder if you could import your own assets in there as well.
I don't know. That's all a good question. I didn't see anything like that now, but if you think it's a great feature, you go on there and let them know, and maybe they'll add it in. So.
Yeah, I love this isometric view, by the way.
Yeah, it's cool.
Mm-hmm. It's
I
very.
hope they have more different textures to work with, because I think it would look cooler with a somewhat more realistic or even like a hand-drawn look. Right now, it's a bit Minecrafty, I think.
Yeah, the blocks that you add are literal cubes of terrain. So,
I mean, like, it has its own visual style. Like, once you get past over that, I guess, that little hurdle, I guess, like, this is the look that this game is going to have. I mean, it's adorable. It looks like you're playing on little bonbons.
And because it is in browser, they probably have some technical constraints on it because they want it to be able to work in a lot of different browsers. And so you have to worry about that. But yeah, check it out. It's battlemap.io and see if you like it. The internet is talking about HeroQuest again, and this time it appears to be legit because it's been talked about before. Earlier this week, Avalon Hill, a subsidiary of Hasbro, launched a teaser website saying, HeroQuest, the quest is calling, with a countdown timer. The timer is set to finish as of right now in about 1 day and 14 hours, which is going to be Eastern Time, noon Eastern Time on Tuesday, September 22nd. So if you're not watching this on our live show right now, then the countdown is almost certainly completed, and we should know what all the hype is by now. However, right now we can only speculate. Most people are expecting a return of the board game in some form, maybe a re-release or an app of some kind, but we'll be sure to let you know when we know. But other than that, HeroQuest was pretty popular back in the day. Did any of you guys play it?
I had it. Trying to get people to play, was always a struggle, but I did have the game.
The eternal struggle of any gamer of any age. So
yeah, and I think I was like in high school and trying to get my family to play with me.
Yeah, I was 1 year old when this came out.
Yeah, it came out in 1989, about the same time as AD&D Second Edition. So the concept.
There it is.
Wow.
I do know this game. No.
Wow, that's pretty impressive. There it is,
Yeah.
HeroQuest, the original box. So
when I found out about this game, though, I was like, man, I would have loved this growing up.
Yeah, so the concept,
it was so different than other games, yeah.
Yeah, the concept is the players could take on the role of a barbarian, or, I like this, by the way, a barbarian, a wizard, or a dwarf or an elf. Like those are anyway.
No, that's first edition D&D or basic D&D was.
Oh, okay. Well, I didn't
elf,
actually play back then.
Fighter, wizard, yeah.
Okay. So one player would take on the role of the master of the game, which was an evil wizard called Zargon or Morcar in the UK, if you were playing it in the UK. The dungeon would be built based on the quest that the players were supposed to be going on. The tiles, dungeon walls, various monsters and items would be placed around the board and controlled by the game master or the evil wizard, Zargon. And yeah, you'd play through it and you'd explore and be like a dungeon crawl. I hope that this is some sort of an app or video game version of the original board game. I think that while it might have some sort of cult excitement built up, it probably isn't. Just a re-release of the board game probably wouldn't be as popular or as successful, I think, as like an
would
app.
it? Or would it? The thing is, like, HeroQuest, when I saw it, it has a bunch of minis in it, like bookshelves and stuff, right? So, like, and that stuff is always great as scene setting for D&D and stuff. So I always imagine, like, people would get the board game so that they can also use it in their D&D game, but then they're like, I should try this HeroQuest thing. And then they play it and they're like, this is pretty neat. I like doing this and not having to set up a D&D session. So...
Also, the nostalgia factor is pretty big for those of us who did play it back in the day. It was a really great simplified version of D&D that was fun to just break out with some people that you might not have otherwise gotten to entice into a full regular role-playing game session. And I still remember the names of my characters that I played. My barbarian's name was Barf. My elf was Dristan.
Nice, excellent. I just know it might be popular. I'm not saying it would be unsuccessful as a re-release of the board game. I just think that you'd get it in front of more people as an app. But that's just me. I'm not I won't buy the board game probably.
Or maybe it's an app-driven board game, kind of like the stuff that Fantasy Flight's come out with.
Well, okay, so I could see myself getting something like that maybe, because those types of games do always excite me.
I just like when an app drives the GM role instead of anybody at the table having to be responsible for how challenging something is or not. So
yeah, that would be an entirely different game, though. I'm not sure though that HeroQuest, the original design, holds up after we've played more recent editions, or not editions, but recent dungeon crawler board games that have come out. that have probably had more
that's
interesting ideas.
That's probably, if I had to guess, what would be driving this, is that the success of these other dungeon crawl board games made Hasbro go like, wait a minute, we have the original one of this. I bet if we did something like that, we could capitalize on this Berserk board game.
That's actually a really good argument for why it probably is a board game, is they're capitalizing on that plus the nostalgia factor, hoping that will...
right, like an updated one, an updated version of this with modern sensibilities and modern miniatures, I think would crush.
Yeah, that's a really
Honestly,
good point.
I think if they would have done this 10 years ago, it would have been a much better idea than doing it right now.
But now there's 10 years of amazing dungeon crawl board game design that has been built that they can go off of. I mean, there's so many good concepts and streamlining that's been done. 10 years ago, board games were way more convoluted, way more cards, way more tokens, way more everything. Like everything was really intense. Now I feel like designers are starting to figure out how to scale and streamline their things to be just clean and quicker.
Yeah. I think I agree with you.
Pointed out the rights for HeroQuest have been a mess for years too. Going, I think, between Hasbro and GW and who knows what else.
I was going to say, I thought GW actually did have something to do with that.
It was like a joint effort with GW and Hasbro back in the day. And that's part of why it's such a mess, I think, is because GW...
And did they not have an app for this? Not like maybe a couple years ago?
I don't remember for sure.
I felt like there was a game app.
I have played like freeware games that people have made to represent the board game. You can probably find those in some dark corners of the internet somewhere. I have no idea what it was called or where to find it nowadays. But
at any rate, if it does come out, this would be a great on tabletop game that we could play together.
And speaking of Daryl, who just mentioned that, Daryl Mott in the chat room, he wrote up a really good summary on EN World. If you go there and check out his weekly tabletop news digest that he does, he wrote up a little good brief summary in there of the mess and mire of all of those copyright issues on there. If you're interested in that sort of thing, so
column there is always really interesting. He's got a lot of good information and digs deep into the history and provides a well-reasoned analysis. I highly recommend you check it out. And since you're in the chat, Daryl, if you wouldn't mind, just post a link there and we'll read it off for those of you just looking at the video.
Yep. All right, well, that's going to be it for us. Those are just some of the things going on in the world of tabletop this week. If you know some other news stories you'd like to discuss, you should head on over to our Discord server, shadowcasters.network/Discord. We've got a channel there just for suggesting news items for this segment. And if you don't do Discord, well, just send it to contact@shadowcasters.network or tweet your suggestions at SRCasters. That's going to be, like I said, that'll be it for us. And my name's Bobby Frankenberger. Please check out our Patreon, patreon.com/Shadowcasters. And at the very least, subscribe to the channel here, Shadowcasters Network.